Hey everyone, this is Kieran from the Musculoskeletal Clinic. Today's exercise is a bit more of an advanced thoracic and spinal extension exercise. It also includes the arms, and that means the arms are going to be going overhead. So if you have an irritable shoulder, then this probably isn't a good exercise for you. There's some better thoracic extension exercises that won't irritate your shoulder. But if you're looking for something to really build like a full global extension through the spine and the upper limb, then this is a nice exercise for you. So if you spent some time on the YouTube channel, you've probably noticed there's a lot more exercises geared towards spinal extension than there are flexion, particularly in the thoracic spine. And you could hypothesize for some of this, well, the reasons behind this, and for me, it's a little bit to do with just day-to-day life and the kind of tasks we do. And so our body's going to adapt to the things that we do. That's how our body works. It tries to make our tasks more efficient, less cognitive load, less physiological load, so that we can do things for as long as we want to do them and enjoy them. So one of the things that does get missed out a little bit, unless you're involved in an overhead sport, is overhead activities. So unless you're like, I don't know, a volleyball player or tennis, it's involved in these serving positions, rock climber, gymnast, things that involve up here with the arms, then you're not necessarily going to maintain that capacity because you just don't use it. That being said, it can get to a point where people maybe re-enter activities that they want to do. So they come in back into the gym or they join some group classes and they're struggling with overhead stuff, particularly pressing. Pulling seems to be a little bit more forgiving, and that has to do a little bit with some of the stability requirements and the direction of force. But the extension capacity is really important to get back, and if you want to do these things and they're meaningful to you. So it's nice to, when you're trying to get flexibility as an adult, it's nice to have anchors or things that can give you a sense of, not necessarily stability, but something to reference, right? Instead of like having dead space. So for example, if I go to touch my toes right now, I can't feel necessarily things under my legs. I can feel a hamstring stretch a little bit. But if I could say have something touching my legs, I have more frame of reference about where I am in space. And so there's going to be a little bit more sense of safety and less threat, and so I can keep going. With this exercise, it's nice to set this up with like a squat rack. I have a version where I'm holding a kettlebell and I'm over a box, and that requires a sort of different kind of flexibility requirement. Whereas with this one, you can anchor with straight arms and give yourselves, I guess, a different point to move from, and that'll make more sense as you experiment with it. So you need to set something up. This could be a squat rack like this. I'm going to go a little bit higher, just above the height of the bench. If you don't have a squat rack, you could always just set a barbell up across and put enough weight on there so that it can counterbalance you. Now, the edge of the bench is going to go on the point of the spine where you feel like you're the most tight. And that's going to change over time as you work through this. And so I'll give a little demo and then we'll talk about some of the nuances. So I'm here. I'm choosing a position at the moment where my head's being supported by the bench. It's not that it has to be, it's just when you're first starting out, that head support is meaning that the muscles at the front of the neck can relax a little bit, because sometimes they can counteract the extension that you're trying to create. So later on, you might develop that ability if you're going to go into like a bridge situation. But for now, just have something supporting your head. My arms are under here, okay? And what I'm going to start doing is bringing my hips down. Now you can do this in a number of ways. You can't really see the nuances, but if I tell you what I'm doing, if I'm pushing my arms into the bar like this, I'm pushing up to the sky, that gives me something to anchor off of. And then I come down, and I'm actually doing two things. I'm pulling my hips down. So I'm actually trying to bend myself over. And so I'm using my back muscles to pull myself under, okay? The other thing you want to add in is the breathing component. And so as you breathe in, your rib cage is going to open up in the front and assist the extension. If you wanted to challenge the spinal extension, then you would do an exhale, because then the ribs are going to depress and bias towards flexion. So you can have this opposite effect going on. But if we just keep it simple, just make sure you do some big breaths in and some big breaths out and work through that. And eventually you'll feel like there's a bit more of a sense of comfort. Okay? Comfort being measured by how easy it is to breathe. Hand rotation is going to play a part. Go a bit more towards thumbs facing the ground to start with, and then you can play with some different positions, but it's just going to keep the shoulders a little more open. So I'm pushing in, and then I'm pulling down, and I'm going to hang out here. Now I can do reps, so I can go up and down, do those for a few to open up, and then I can just hang out here and actively push towards the ground with my pelvis, actively push into the bar with my arms, and also breathe at the same time and think about opening my rib cage with the breath. So, and then exhale, and pull a bit further into extension. Breathe in, and then exhale and pull into more extension. Okay. Other sort of contract relax methods, which is a little more advanced, would be the contrast method. So I'm going to do a big breath in. I'm going to hold my breath. I'm going to tense everything in my body and then create the same push of the pelvis to the ground at the same time. Okay, so I'm creating the stretch while I'm holding my breath. And then you exhale. Okay, so a couple more advanced sort of stretching techniques, particularly the position, but it's going to give you this ability to be overhead with a lot more comfort, because that rib cage can now lift up along with the spinal extension. But then the spinal extension can be there holding you while you breathe. So these two things are happening at once. And then the third thing will be whatever you're doing with your arms, right? What you see is when a lot of people don't have this capacity of tritasking, I suppose, is the head's going to come forward to try to assist tension through the rib cage, but through the front. So it's your body's way of trying to stabilize the situation or create an anchor point for movement. So you'll see someone press overhead and they go like this, okay? And it's because they don't have this extension through the thoracic spine, upper thoracic spine. And so they create this tension through the front to create, like I said, an anchor point instead of anchoring back in here. So the shoulder blades are then free to move, and it just creates other restrictions. Bad, good, I don't know. I mean, it just depends how much load you're doing, how prepared you are for it, and then how many reps you're doing and how out of breath you are. So other things to think about. But when you have the flexibility and you got more movement patterns to play with, then these things become less of a concern. So give it a go. Set a timer for a few minutes, play around with it, or do reps, sets of 10, spend some time on the 10th rep, and just breathe in and out of it, find some comfort in the discomfort. And maybe have a mindset of like 6 to 18 months for this kind of exercise to make some sort of substantial changes. If you like this video, then please hit like below. Otherwise, to check out more of our content in the future, you can subscribe to our channel by clicking our logo over here. And to check out our latest video, click up here.